guys, I hope you're doing well today. I decided to try something new and do a new format today and just do a Q&A. I had a question, I think last week, that was a good question, and I've had it several other times in the Facebook groups and in other groups. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try and do a Q&A video. And the question was, what's the difference between lava rock, like the red lava rock that you buy or that you can buy some places, and pumice? And um, would it be okay to use the red lava rock even if it's not as good as pumice or not? And so basically the answer is yes. It has some similar properties to pumice, obviously, as it's a lava rock, but it has some pretty different properties as well. And so so for the red lava rock, which is called scoria, if you've ever seen it labeled as that, it is a what they call an extremely vesicular basalt, and vesicular just means it has a lot of cavities in it, and or vesicles, and so that's how it gets its name. And there's a lot of different types of lava, obviously, in lava rock. Many different types of rock are formed in volcanic eruptions from lava, lava flows, etc. But pumice, and so, well, back to scoria. For scoria, so when it is formed, it is formed from lava flows and eruptions, but mostly it's flowing. And whereas pumice is also formed in a volcano, but it is blown out in a much more violent eruption. And while it's being blown out, there's so many air and water molecules that are interacting with it as it's being blown up that it forms these tiny pockets. It's called a froth, is a way to the minerals make this froth because it's so hot, and it's called a felsic rock, and which felsic just means it's composed of mostly light minerals, light colored minerals. So pumice is a white, kind of grayish, really light color, and so that's why it's the type of minerals that it contains, and they're quite different from the type of minerals that are contained in scoria. There can be some similar a few overlapping minerals, but not nearly as many. Pumice contains 70 or more great, amazing trace minerals that are pretty readily accessible to plants because of its frothy nature. The plants can just absorb it because the layers are these really thin volcanic glass. And the scoria, or the red or black, either one, volcanic kind of landscaping rock, is a much heavier, it's an actual rock, whereas pumice is a volcanic glass. And so pumice actually will float. Eventually it breaks down and won't float anymore after it's exposed and bumped, and all of the little air chambers inside have kind of gotten damaged. It will absorb water and sink. But initially it floats, whereas scoria never floats. It's a heavy rock and is going to sink. It has a lot of really rough edges, and because they're rock, they're a lot more potentially damaging to roots as opposed to pumice, which is a glass, and so they're just a lot finer, thinner, the edges, and lighter. And so they're not putting weight on a root with a sharp edge. They're just going around the roots. And so, especially when repotting from dirt or something else into something like scoria, you can really damage roots. And with succulents, that can be kind of sad, especially if they get any kind of infection or anything. So that's something to watch out for. That is one of the reasons that it is typically used in landscaping and not so much in pots, and they typically use it just as a top dressing, which it makes a great top dressing, prevents bugs and insects of various types, even a lot of rodents, and because they just don't want to mess with digging in it. But All right, where else was I going with that? Oh, so as far as roots and being light and causing the soil to be more aerated, the scoria can help the soil be aerated because it does have air pockets in it, but it's not helping in the same way as pumice is of lightening the soil, and pumice just absorbs or holds a lot more air and a lot more water than scoria does, which the pumice holds the water in a way that is just beautiful, where the plants can access it even if it almost seems bone dry, and it does seem bone dry to the touch for sure, but even just to observation seems bone dry. The plants can still get some moisture, but at the same time it's not holding moisture right up against the plant roots or the stems that can lead to rotting. So even though it holds more water, it's not in a dangerous way. It's in a really beneficial way to most plants. And scoria just doesn't have that advantage. Another thing about scoria is that it can be really high in fluoride. And for succulents in particular, fluoride can be pretty damaging, which is one of the reasons that they say not to use tap water in the city a lot of times, especially with certain varieties that can tend to be really sensitive to fluoride. And I couldn't find a lot of information on this with as far as with plant culture. I've seen a few references to it, but nothing really in depth. But if you look into water, underground water systems and fluoride content there, the underground water systems that have a really surprisingly high fluoride content naturally are always the ones that are near, or almost always the ones that are near volcanic deposits. Sorry, I was just having a mind space there. And so and they do know that the stones are often very high in fluoride. Now, how much of that is accessible to plants, I don't know, because I haven't seen any actual studies on that. However, if it's accessible to the water supply and then that's accessible to plants, I would think it would be pretty accessible in a potting mixture. Now, if it's high enough fluoride content to matter, I don't know, and probably not. I really don't know. I'm not sure percentage-wise, like what is often added to city water that would be comparable to what's naturally. I have absolutely no idea. But it's just an interesting fact, so I thought I'd mention it here, that it can have fairly high fluoride content. So if a plant is struggling that you do have in scoria, maybe take it out and see if that helps at all. That being said, quite a few people grow quite successfully in the lava rocks, and as opposed to pumice, some use a mixture of various other ingredients with it, and some use just pure scoria. I believe they use it quite a lot in hydroponic gardening, if I'm recalling right, and that was where I believe I saw a reference to the fluoride contents, and so but the rocks are obviously immersed in water if it's hydroponic, a hydroponic system, or watered a lot more than it would be in succulent gardening, so there might be a lot more fluoride potentially extracted in a situation like that. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe, if I'm remembering right, from when I was reading back when, who knows when, that it was in reference to hydroponics. So a lot of plants, it can be fairly beneficial to. Oh, one other thing is the lava rock or scoria can have a lot of really, really fine dust of all kinds of other things that may or may not be very helpful to your plants, and can just clog up things and not allow the air to flow really well, not allow the lava rock to absorb what it would absorb, etc. And so washing it before you use it, if you're using it in a potting mixture especially, would be a really good idea. Just rinse all of that really fine dust that they can just get filled into all of their holes. Just wash it all out. Let's see. I haven't used it myself. that I should put that out there. We used it in landscaping a fair amount in Texas, but just as a top covering really, and I've never used it mixed in with soil of any kind. So I can't really comment as far as succulents and that. I like pumice so much and use it for the added benefits of the mineral content, the aeration, the lightness, etc., which is what I would like here in the north. However, down south where where the conditions are hotter and drier, and where the lava rock is everywhere, you can find it really easily in really large bags for really cheap. Why not try it? You know, it's going to be better than aquarium gravel. It's going to be better than any kind of other, you know, pea gravel or anything that you might add to your pot, because it's going to be a lot more porous than any of those. Those are just kind of space fillers, really. They don't add any aeration to the soil. Other types of gravel, which space fillers can be advantageous, and throwing in a handful of gravel mixed into your potting mix is totally fine. The other thing is, with it being, which maybe I mentioned this already, with it being heavy, because it is a rock as opposed to a volcanic glass like pumice, a lot of people don't use it in pots as much because the pots get heavier because they're full of rocks. But in small pots, you know, it really doesn't matter. If you can get the more pea-sized or larger, I don't know, garbanzo bean sized scoria, then you know the little succulent pots aren't going to get too heavy in something like that. Okay, I'm gonna cut it off there, and so that this doesn't go on too long. But if you use scoria to grow succulents mixed in with other things or on its own, please comment below and let us know how you like it, if you've used it with pumice, and the comparison, how you feel they compare, because we would all love to hear. In the description box below, there will be a link to our Facebook group if any of you would like to join that. And let me know if you like the Q&A kind of format, and if I should just answer some questions that I get, you know, if I get repeated questions, if I should just do this on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever, however often I decide to do it basis, or if you like the more focused videos, or if a mixture is nice. By focused, I mean directly at plants, you know, talking specifically about certain plants, as opposed to more extraneous type things like potting mixture, which to me is still completely pertinent, right? Thanks for the question. It was a great question, and I have had quite a few of the same type vein and have never done a video on that, so thank you very much. I did a video on pumice, but I really didn't go into other types of volcanic rock and why you might or might not use them. So thank you, and until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Happy growing!